let's talk about fetching data and objects. So I think what we should do is use this Star Wars API site. So this Star Wars API site, if we give it certain URLs, it will give us back certain data. And Michelle and I were having a conversation on the break about what is an API. And I said you can kind of think of APIs like you currently think of functions. Right? If you think about that function we just wrote for Code Wars, right? It has things that went in, goes intos, and things that came out, comes out of, right? Goes intos and goes outos. What went into that function that we were doing in Code War was an array that had numbers in it. And what came out was two numbers, a count and a sum. If you think about what you did with your open weather map, right, it has inputs, the city name or the zip code, and it has things that come out, which is this big JSON object that describes what the weather is there. Right? That's all that an API is. You can think of it like a function, but it's a function that happens over the internet. Right? You didn't have to write it. It doesn't live on your computer. It lives somewhere else, and you're asking that somewhere else for some function. Give me back all of the people who are in the Star Wars universe. Right? Give me back a list of all of the Star Wars films. Give me back the weather in Beverly Hills. Eventually, we're also going to learn that APIs can also change data. Right? Maybe if the Star Wars API allowed us to add a new character, right, there'd be a URL where we could send it information as well to tell it to record more information. Right? Eventually, when we're making our apps, and you'll see that students making their capstone projects, right, their apps are going to take in information and save it, and also return information. Right? So APIs don't just give information out, but they can also accept information and record it. But we're going to work on that half later. So let's build something that will use the Star Wars API /people. Right? So this is telling us if we ask for API people, we should get back something that looks like this. Here's our list. So we get the name of the person, their height, their mass, hair color, the films they've been in. Is anything in here a picture of them? Doesn't look like it. That would be nice. So let's do something where we'll list out all of the characters and maybe the number of films they've been in. That's what we want. Let's build a site that has that information in it. It's going to list the people in the Star Wars universe and the number of films they've been in. And maybe we'll add a couple things along the way. So we want to practice with fetch and we want to practice with objects. So let's go into Cohort XII, and we are in week 3. This is day 3. Let's app beta Star Wars APIs. So one of the first things that we tend to do when we are working with a new API is kind of look at the shape of the data, right? Because it's going to return data in some structure. If the JSON API usually as a JavaScript object, and it'd be good for us to start inspect this and see how we would navigate this structure. What's the shape of the data? What's the structure of the data? So if we get back this object, that first little brace up there tells we're getting back an object. Some APIs just return arrays, but this one returns an object. And inside of that object, we have a number of keys. Right? We get a count, Probably tells us how many entries there are, how many people. And then gives us a next. We'll talk about that in a minute. And a previous. We'll talk about that in a minute. The most interesting part is the results. If I ask for the results from this object, what kind of thing would I get back? I would get back an array. We know that. There's a bracket right there. If we ask for this object's results, we get back an array. What kinds of, so somebody other than Toby now, he just answered this one, what kinds of elements are in that array? Objects. We know that because the next thing we see is a bracket. If I ask that object for its name, I'd get back Luke Skywalker. And if I ask for that object's films, what kind of thing would I get back? An array. And inside of that array, I would find what kind of thing? Yeah, and what kind are those things? They're strings. Strings. So this is the kind of thing when you're looking at an API that we're starting to clock in our brains, right? What kinds of things does it return? What's the structure if I ask for the object's results? What kind of thing do I get back? An array? Okay. So once I see array, I'm starting to think for each, for loops, filter, map, right? Those are the tools that I have to work on arrays. Oh, and I see that inside of that, each person has films, and that's an array. Okay, so I've got objects with arrays that have objects that have arrays. So there's going to be some navigation of that as we work. So, hopefully app is done. It is. Our homepage lists our homepage. What? I was on their homepage, and they give an example, and then you go to the documentation. Talk here about. Over here are all of the resources that this API has. So if I want the people, and it talks about the URL, and it talks about all the acts. Question?
So you would just put that URL.
Here, we look at people. Let's see right here. What's this say? Gets all the people. People with a number gets a specific person. So people 1 gives me back Luke Skywalker, but people gives me back all the people. So let's do a little design. Let's go see if we can find an interesting font to use. So we have some style in here. Will I get a Star Wars? Will I get anything? No, of course not. Copyrights. Like, really? Wow. That stinks. Yeah, space. Yeah, I don't want to go through all that. I was hoping just to find something really quick. We used to have really awesome fonts. Assistant for sans serif. No, none of these are fun. Let's use this one.
It's ITC Serif.
Is it on Google?
I looked up what font the Star Wars uses.
Yeah, but I doubt it's going to be there. So let's import that font into our style sheet. And then let's do font family. If someone finds it while we're going, that'd be great. Import lets us bring the font in our CSS, where the standard we need to link to it from our head. Probably we're going to be in the habit of putting it in our CSS. Mm-hmm. Did that work? Yeah, no thanks. There we go. Okay. And let's turn off the silly question mark on the end. Let's go. Let's find a background image to put on here. That would be fun. Search. So has anybody done this with the advanced search? If you click on tools, you can ask for a size of an image. I've asked for something that's like 1,000 pixels by like 300. Yeah, I mean it's close. It's all right. This one here? This one here? Yeah. I like this one. So if you really look, so like normally I'm not supposed to like ghost. Oh, and you know what? And see, this is cool. Yeah, it's free. The other place I really like, and let's check there real quick. So there's a site called Unsplash. I love these because they're free, and they're yeah. So all these are free to use. No license. Also give credit, so you can like read me like the image came from this person, but they've got great images. So let's grab this, and then let's go into our public folder and make an images folder. And I'm going to use this tool called wget. So wget is a tool that if you give it a URL, will download that file and put it wherever you are. You can brew install wget. So see, it downloaded this URL and dumped the file in my public images directory. It downloads this URL and takes whatever it spits back and dumps it in whatever folder I'm in. So I tend to use the command line for all this stuff, right? I'm not going to download the file and then go find it in the thing and drag it around in the Finder. I'm just going to go to my public images directory and use the wget tool to download that file. So things like brew install don't matter where you do them from because they're installing it globally on your machine. Yeah, so brew and those things don't matter where because that's just a tool you can use anywhere. Things like we start to use NPM packages, that it matters which project you're in. So brew you can run from anywhere.
So you're in your current project.
I'm in public images. Yep. Yep. So this is kind of the command line way of doing that. Otherwise, you can download the file and go into VS Code and drag it around. I'm a command line person. So let's go make the background image for our H1. Public images, this. How's that look? Oh, not public images, just images. Let's make the font color white just so we can see it. Let's make the font height and font size. Let's make the margin 0 pixels. Run the padding. Right, something like that. Okay. So now what we would like to have happen, and this is my cheating, right? This is the same thing we're asking the students to do for their final projects, right? Build the user interface first. Let's build what we want this to look like first statically before we try and make it go off and get into data. So after this, maybe we'll have an H2 that says characters. And then maybe we'll have an unordered list of right, whatever this is. Right, maybe we have something like this. So let's take the H2 and make it a little bit bigger. And let's text align, center that. Let's take our ULs and let's style none. And what would that look like? Nope. Maybe we'll just do let's see how big that is. Question. That's fine. Right. So we'll make a max width for it based on the font size. I didn't want to center all the words. I just kind of want it off of the edge. So this is kind of what we want, something like this. So let's take a look at what comes back from the people. Where was that good example we had? I guess we closed it. Let's open up this example again. So he was actually in 5 films. Let's try and get the data accurate. 5 films. Then the next person that comes back is C3PO. 6 films. And then is Vader. Awesome. And he was in 4 films. Right, so that's kind of the first couple of data that might come back from the API if it returns it in the same order. So still, I'm just kind of faking the data so far. Right, I'm not really using the real data. So what we'd like to be able to do is go fetch this data off the internet and build up a list of characters based on this. So I even cheated that. Right? If this is the sample data, right, this is what a response of asking for the people is. Why don't I just grab all of this, and I'm going to make a variable called fake data equal to all of that. Well, I've got the data in my program. I don't have to worry about the fetch and the API and all that. If they give me sample data, I'll just use that sample data like it's fake data, and I'll start to use it in my program. So I'm not worried about fetch and response JSON and then and all that stuff yet. I'm going to take this static thing and build it up dynamically based on fake data. I'm going to inch my way towards having this be live updating from the API. So I'm going to build my entire site static first with the way I want it to look if I were to have data. Then I'm going to go grab some sample data and then start working with it. So one of the first things I do is just make sure I can understand how to use the data. We talked about that in order to get to the results, we have to ask for this data.results. So the first thing I might do is my old debugger friend console.log. And if I respond with fake data.results, I should see in my console I should see, hey, it's an array of 10 things. And boy, those sure do look like 10 characters from Star Wars. If this is an array, what tool can I use to go through those entries? Yeah, for loop or a filter. Yeah, but do I want to reduce them down? I want all of them. So I can use a for loop or the more modern version of the for loop that we learned, for each. For each. So let's use for each. So we're going to take the fake data results, because this is our array, for each. And this is going to take something here and do something with it. What kind of things are these? Yes, but more generally, they are what kinds of, like I would say Luke Skywalker, C3PO, R2-D2, and Darth Vader are, yeah, they're names, but they're characters. They're characters in our story. So if that's our characters, what's kind of our general rule for naming this variable in a loop? Character. So you had a question?
Yeah, where do the results come from again?
Right? If we look at the structure of this JSON object,
Oh, right there.
here's an object.
Yeah.
The interesting stuff is inside of this results. So if I go through this one at a time now, and I console.log the character, now I get the characters one at a time. So now I'm looping through each character. And the character has all of this information and its films. So now what I want to do is I want to start making up some classes to help me store and manage this information. This is the data that comes back from the API. I'm going to now, rather than just have this object, I want to make a specific class to manage this information. Let's make a specific class. Let's call it character, because that's what we're tracking, right? And the things that I want the character to be able to give me right now is just its name and its number of films. That's the date, that's the behavior I want this class to have. How did I know that? Isn't that kind of what I'm showing? Those are the nouns of the things I want. I want to be able to show Luke Skywalker and the number of films. So I want to be able to say, what is this character's name and what are the number of films? So in order to do that, I need some input. This class needs something to come into it. I can't just invent a name. I can't just invent a number of films. I need something to feed this class. So we need information to feed the class. We give it to the class via what specially named function? Not return, not fetch. Every class can have one special method. We always put it at the top of the class. It's the constructor. All right? This is the method that is called when we make a new character. So what I wish I could do is store the person's name. Let's do this. Let's call this. I wish I could store the character's name and its film count. All right, this is going to be something like Luke Skywalker and 4 films. If I could do that, what would I return here? Just my character name. In order to satisfy this, what would I return? Okay. If I could find a way in the constructor to have this character class remember the name of the character and how many films they were in, then when I ask for the name and I ask for the number of films, I could just return that information that I memorized in my constructor. If down here, I'm going to cut that down, so you don't need to see all of this. If in my console log here I have this character, don't I have some of that information? Starting to. Michelle, did you have a question? Was that a stress or a question?
Question about the constructor.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing it in this because we're using the data.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working on the project yesterday, I didn't need it in that API function.
Yes, because it didn't need any external information. So the character needs information because we're going to be pulling some information out of what we get in. Right, so now we're going through one character at a time, and I want to remember every character's name and how many films they were in. So this is the information I have about a character, right? This whole structure down here that's given by character.
Can you explain that again? I'm just having a hard time wrapping my mind around it.
So
I didn't need it yesterday.
yeah, we didn't need it for the weather because the weather only needed the name of the city, and that's not part of what it was remembering. So we need a constructor when the class itself needs information the moment that thing is created. The moment we create an object from this class, the second that we ask this character factory to make one of itself, immediately we need some information. Right away. Not passed into it later, right away. So once we create a character, does it make sense to have a character without a name? No. Does it make sense to have a character without it knowing how many films it's been in? No. So if we need information right away, it's going to go in the constructor. Right? When we created our deck of cards the other day, does it make sense to have a deck of cards that don't have cards in it? No. So we put in the constructor the 52 cards that make up a deck. right? So the constructor is what should this class have the second we make one of them. In this case, we want to remember its character name and we want to remember its film count.
If you didn't constructor anything you want.
No. Constructor is the one function that must be called constructor. Everything else we get to call it what it is, but the constructor is a special function.
So if I was to make this, and I would want to have zero data for the character name unless it's supplied. Let's just say that I that's what I want. I could use an empty string.
Yes.
For film count, empty number.
Empty array, a zero. Probably a zero for this case.
Okay.
Probably a zero.
Okay, gotcha.
Might be getting ahead of where we are, but how does the constructor know that character name is the name of the...
This I'm making up.
Right, I see that.
This is Taco Tuesday. This is Taco Tuesday. Anything I want to call it.
I see that. So how will, I guess we're going to go through how it will assign
Just
the
a
actual
second.
name.
Yeah, literally the next words out of my mouth
Okay.
are going to be that. So we have to supply this constructor some information, right? We have to pass it some information. Doesn't this thing have the information we need? Right? This character is this over here. This is what's inside of character right now. Doesn't this have the name right here? And doesn't it have all of the films here? It sure does. So what if we just passed that information? We make a new character. We'll pass this character. So now the names are getting a little confusing. So maybe this is like raw character data. Let's rename that. So now that I'm passing this raw character data to this character constructor, right? When we create a new character, what shows up here becomes the arguments to the constructor. This can be Taco Tuesday, anything I want to call it, right? Whatever this is, after the new class name parentheses, whatever's inside of this are the arguments to the constructor. Just like an argument to a regular function, except here we name it a special thing.
Yeah, can you see the minutes where you're recording?
I see the minutes when I'm recording. What do you mean?
So I can quick reference the video later?
Not easily.
I'll find it in the beginning.
Yeah.
We started this portion of the lecture at 11:20.
Yeah, so you're 34 minutes in. Yeah. Yeah. So if this is the raw character data, right? That's one of these guys right here. Where's the name going to come from? It's a little bigger so you can see it. Raw character data name. How am I going to compute how many films this person was in? And what about the films? Let Frank finish it. Raw character data films is what kind of thing? Yeah, let Frank finish it because he started it.
Array.
Yep, and how can I find out how many elements are in that array? Yes, but even better, I could ask for the length. So my character, when I take a constructor, I can remember its name and its film count by taking the film length. Eventually, we're going to be pulling more information out of that raw data, right? The number of starships, the films themselves, right? But I can start just pulling out from this raw response the data that I need and start formulating it the way I want. So rather than deal with this raw response, I can make it work the way I want it to work. But I have to put this somewhere, right? Let my new character be a new character. But I'm not keeping track of these anymore. Every time I go through this loop, I'm making a new character. I got to save them somewhere, right? So let's make a characters array. And let's take this characters and push a new character. So now I'm building up a new thing. Now I have an array of 10 what? Characters. Now I have an array of 10 characters, and look what's inside of it. It's exactly the information that I need. I have 10 things that have a character name and a film count. Skywalker's been 5, C3's been 6, R2D's been 7, Vader's been 4, Leia's been 5, etc. Yeah. I'm making a new array. I'm going through the raw results, one element at a time, and asking to turn that raw character data into this fancy character class that has just the bits I need, exactly the way I want to work with it. I'm not tied to the format of the API anymore, right? I've separated the logic of parsing the API, kind of like you did with your weather API, into the structure that you want to work with it in. And I'm pushing that new character onto my array of characters, kind of like we pushed cards into a hand. What's true about the characters array versus the fake data results? Console.log fake data.results. What's the same about these two arrays? Yeah, they both got 10 elements, exactly. Exactly. What tool takes one array and turns it into a new array with exactly the same number of elements? Map. Yeah. Filter scrunches down, and map is exactly the same. So when we see something that's turning one array of raw results into an array of 10 characters, we can use map. So instead of using for each, we can use map. And rather than pushing this, we can just return it. Because that's what the map function is going to want. Take in one value, return the value transformed, and then it returns our new array. So this form is just like what we had before, but it lets us use map. So we're going to take the fake data results and map our raw data into a new character and return it. And now we have characters that we can use. Let's do this. Let's go through each character. Let's go find that UL. Create a new LI. Let's make a new text content. Character name has been in character film count films. Let's take the UL and append child the new LI. Right? This pattern we've been doing for a while. Save this, and I'm missing a closing parentheses. If I save this, what is going on? There we are. Hey, look at that. Right, all the characters. Now I can get rid of my fake data. Now I have live data, but it's coming from a fake source. Right? I'm really processing what this fake data is. Let's do this with fetch. Let's fetch and give it the URL. What was the URL? sloppy people. Then this boilerplate of response JSON. Then we don't have fake data, we have raw data that we can work with. Let's take all of this implementation that we just had and move it, sorry for the jumbling back and forth. Let's take all of this here and move it inside of the then. We want it to happen after the response comes back from the API. This is no longer fake data, this is raw data. We can finally get rid of all this fake data. We can delete all of this. Now we're doing the same thing, but not with fake data. All of this is now being done with live data. This data comes off of their website. How will I know? Well, one of the things that we saw when we were looking at the people list that we were looking at before was I just deleted it. Let me look at it here. Let me grab this URL. So if you noticed, and we kind of skipped over it in the beginning, it says 87 people, right? How many do we have on our list? 10. That's because it's not going to give me back all 87 at once. You're going to find that APIs are going to paginate data, right? You've been on sites where it's like, hey, results 1 through 10 of 1,000, and you click on next, next, next. That's the idea of pagination. So in this API, it's telling us there's 87 people. So I'm only going to give you 10 at a time. If you want the next set of people, here's the URL to go to. So you have text on page equals 2 on the end. Right? That would give us the second page of 10 people. So let's take a look at my API here. And then let's tack on page equals 2. Page equals 3. Page equals 4.
So to make that dynamic, you probably want to make like a next button and then have it change the number.
I will leave that as an exercise to the reader. Right? But did you see the process that we went through? We started with a very static page. I kind of faked the data right in HTML. I grabbed the fake data from the API, processed that, got that working, and I replaced the fake data with live data.
I honestly got lost Cohort still, but a few things have changed since then, so I'll have to go back on that. For this API, yesterday we had to make an account for what it said, and then tack on our own members. Did we not have to do that anymore?
This one does not require an account. Okay. This one's like a free and open API. It doesn't require a sign up. Yeah. So if you like sign up for Google and you want to use the Google Map feature, you got to sign up for the Google account. If you're going to sign up with Facebook and you're going to pull data of Facebook friends, you got to sign up for a Facebook account. Right? So this is kind of using everything. Functions, right? We're using classes, we're using looping, right? We used for each and map. It kind of brings everything together. Right? This is a good one to like maybe try and do this one on your own. Take this video as a review and try and re-implement it on your own. Go through this on your own. Maybe change the styles or the words. There's one more thing I want to change to kind of show you the importance of the class. Did you notice that down here I kind of had to hard code this description? Character name has been in film count films. What if we added another feature called description? Now we'll say this character name has been in this film count films. And now down here, I can just say, hey, give me the character description. Now, anywhere where I want to, oops, you know what I forgot to do? Backticks, I think. No, I did do backticks. Oh, I forgot to call it. So it's giving me the actual function, not the call of the function. There we go. Right. This is the actual definition of the function. This is the result of calling the function. That's what I meant. Right. So now anywhere I want a character description, I've got that available to me. I'm not hard coding that into my code. This is the benefit of pulling this information into a class. Right. We're encapsulating, we're putting all the things that are about a character in one place. Its name, number of films, and a description of that character in one place. Cool. So this kind of programming is what we're going to start to do next week when we get into React. Since next week is short, we're missing Monday. I think what we'll do tomorrow is we'll do an introduction to React. I'll kind of give you like a little sampling taste of it. What we would normally do on Monday, we'll do tomorrow. And then Tuesday, we'll start in with our first like working with React and React assignments. Your homework for tonight. Hopefully I can find it in here. Homework for tonight. This is not it. It's not what I want. It's called function. It's a practice with functions. Right. So you're just going to practice working and writing functions. They're like little, even tinier, smaller practices like a code war, but even tinier than that. So the instructions are to fork this repository. So the way you fork a repository is you open it. What? The link is not working? Oh, the link is bad. I will fix the link. How could that even be? So here's the repository we want you to fork. You'll notice that in the upper right corner is a fork link. When you fork this repository, you're making a copy of it into your own repository. All right, so when you fork this and you pick your account, you may not get this because I have multiple accounts. You'll now have a copy of this repository in your own account. So this is, you're kind of taking what we wrote and giving yourself your own repository. Then you will go into your training directory, which for you is SDG Unit 1. Clone the repository, cd, right, yarn install, code.yarn test, and then open up this file. What you're going to find inside of that file when you open it are some instructions. Define a function max that takes two numbers as arguments and returns the largest of them. Use if, then, else. When you do this, in your console, you'll see passing or failing responses. At first, it's going to say fail. You're going to write this code until that first test passes. Then you're going to write max of 3 that takes 3 numbers as arguments and returns the largest of them. Work on that code until it passes, so forth and so on.
I'm sorry, how did you say we tested?
The instructions are here. Follow these instructions. If you follow these instructions and you look in your console where you've run yarn test, you will see passing and failing missives. It'll probably say something like, hey, you haven't defined max, so right here you're going to write the max function. Right? And you're going to write the implementation of max until it works. Like a little teeny tiny code war. What's it supposed to do? Takes 2 numbers as arguments and returns the largest. Use if then else. When that one's working, right here, write a new function max of 3. It's going to take 3 arguments. Notice it doesn't tell you what they're called. You get to invent the names of the arguments. Taco Tuesday 1, Taco Tuesday 2, Taco Tuesday 3. Right? It's going to return the largest of 3 numbers. And then there's like 4 or 5 other challenges in here. Right? Do as many of these as you can. Start with the first one. Go as far as you can. It's just practice writing logic and writing functions. I would suggest between now and review it 2, follow the instructions and see if you can get the testing environment up and running so you know that it's doing what you need to do. If that trips you up, come find me and I'll help you get set up. And then I can give you some directions on how to write the first one if you need it. And then feel free to work on the rest. This is your homework for tonight. Cool? Yes? No? No? Go team. This would be good practice for